Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Kazingram Dialogue. This is IJ Makan. I got a special guest for you today. First of all, happy Canadian Thanksgiving to all my Canadian brothers and sisters. Hope you had a good weekend. You rested, you ate lots of food. So now my guest is Armel VNCHY Kazadi. Armel is a rapper. Armel is a friend of mine, and we got deep into some topics. Armel and I discuss his philosophy of music, why he raps, and why he is actually taking a break from rapping, his current exploration with what the nature of reality is and how he perceives the world around him, why he thinks he doesn't live in a racist world, even though his first interaction with a white person in Canada was in a bathroom where the man pushed him and called him the N-word, how Armel has overcome such difficulties. We discuss the power of the human mind and how underutilized it is. We discussed many more things, and I don't want to give it all away. So I hope you enjoy this podcast. But now please welcome my friend Armel VNCHY Kazadi to the Kazingram Dialogue. Armel, thank you so much for being here, bro.
Yeah, it's surreal.
We've been trying to get this set for about a month.
Yeah.
And then I kept screwing up the scheduling, so that's my fault.
Everything happens in good time, yeah?
But you were just telling me, because Armel, for our listeners, Armel is a very good rapper. And he was, I don't know the rap scene too well, but from what I've been told by Axe, his older brother, you were signed by a pretty big dude down in LA.
I wasn't.
You weren't?
I wasn't.
But you were down in LA.
I was.
Rapping.
Yes.
Making music.
Yes.
You have what, 3 albums?
No, EPs.
EPs.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
An album is generally a big body of project.
Okay.
It's about, let's say, over 7 tracks, because 7 is where the EP ends. And then you get into a mixtape or an album. And a mixtape will usually be a compilation of different, it can be different, or they can be, sometimes mixtapes are called albums. It's one of those things that's synonymous but different.
Okay. So
right? Albums will usually have a lot more money pumped into them. They'll usually be something that is required on paper to do. If you are in the case where what you spoke about, if I was signed, I would have had to drop albums.
You would have to drop if you were signed. So you weren't signed.
I wasn't signed.
But you were. What I don't know if you're allowed to talk about this, or you signed an NDA.
No, I wasn't signed. I wasn't signed. I went out there. Okay, I went out there with my team. All right, I went out there with my team, and there was a lot of speculation. Right, a lot of people were asking a lot of questions, and that whole rumor of me being signed, is something that kind of just took place in that atmosphere of things, right? But I wasn't. A lot of things were blessed, thank God. There was a lot of people that did a lot of good things for me, right? And I'm forever thankful for that, because when I look at my life, it's, for the most part, has been that kind of thing that when people look at from the outside, it's like, whoa, like he's got this and that and this and that and this and that, it just seems like all the requirements were there, from the skills first with myself. Even when we speak about, early on in my life, I was big into, music was one of the first things that I did fall in love with ever since I was in Africa, born in Zambia.
You were born in Zambia?
Born in Zambia.
Okay. I thought it was only your older brother.
No. My older brother was born in Congo, and then the second oldest, Zambia. Yeah. My oldest sister, Congo.
Okay.
And then I came as the middle child, right? Zambia as well. And I have memories of Zambia still. And I remember making excuse me, making drums out of like you'll take a cylinder type of like plastic object where you have obviously holes through the both sides, right? So it's a hollow cylinder, okay? And then I remember using plastic, and it was a pretty strong piece of plastic, right? So this wasn't like the greatest drum out there, right? But it worked. And you take a lot of them, and then you kind of put it over one side, and then you take the string, right, and you make sure it's really tight, and then you just you put the string around and tighten it, get a really nice knot, something around those. I remember a lot of people helping me, because I was very young. Yeah. And then you play them, and then people, my friends, all of us will start dancing. And there was a lot of people in the neighborhood. They'll just come by, and they'd come by with instruments and stuff, and they'll just be playing. And I'd come outside, and all my friends would be playing, and I'd go and I'd enjoy, the music. And I remember actually when my younger sister was born, we had a big party. Yeah. And I remember we made a huge circle. And it's one of the memories that sticks with me. And then I remember getting in the middle and dancing my ass off. Everybody had a good time.
Is the culture in Zambia like a very musically oriented culture? Is that why? Or is it just your family? Or is it just you? I should say it's just you because your older brother raps as well.
Yeah. The music part is, I would say... it's all over the continent as Africa. Yeah. Right. And music is a huge part of Africa, especially the parts that are, the whole continent itself has been in a developing stage for a long time, Other parts are better developed than others, but for the most part, the average of the continent is developing. And I think whenever people are hit with I don't want to just say an obstacle. It has to be something that hits you in the places that hurt the most, hits your soul. So something that is very tragic. When it happens to you, you are forced to connect with something deeper than what you're around, because what you're around is, you feel that it isn't what's really there. Like, yeah, it's tragic, but you feel that there is. And that's what a lot of people describe as hope, right? There's something beautiful there and coming, right? So when you do that, music is one of the, I don't want to say the word as catalyst, but it's very much a tool for connecting. Okay. And it gets very scientific too when you start speaking about the whole idea of, it's not an idea, it's it's mathematics, even a frequency, a pattern. An oscillation, right? It's also described as a period in a graph, right? Something that's periodic, like a sine pattern is periodic, right? This whole thing creates a vibration, right? And that's when I'm talking right now. That's all that's happening. It's just vibration. It's just a bunch of compressions and expansions all happening around us within the air.
Right? And music is when you put all these things together, and I find that music transports you. Certain music transports you to places that are deep. You know, like when you're listening to it, you're like, oh my goodness, this is something else. This is incredible. And then there are crappy music, in my opinion. And it's like, what? Well, this is, it just sounds like it's stolen. Yeah. Yeah. But then there are like original music, like your music. When you rap, this is no joke. I'll be completely honest. I can't rap. The only reason I got into rap is because my older brother is like a big Tupac fan. Okay. And he would have CDs and CDs of it, so I would listen to it. Yeah. But like when I was introduced to your rap by Axel, your brother, I was like, man, this kid is talented. I'm like, what the heck? Like, he showed me a video. I think it was a competition in Ottawa. Yeah. You had a pencil, right? Yeah. Am I okay? And you're just like making a beat on the table with a pencil or a pen, and then you're rapping. I'm like, what in the world is happening right now?
Funny thing about that, I remember when I first picked it up. I remember I was in Bathurst, because that's where I grew up, in the East Coast.
Okay.
And I was over there, and you got a lot of time. You got to entertain yourself, right? So I'm looking on YouTube and such, and I just got into rap, right? I'm fresh into it, and then I see this guy call himself Lyrical God, and he had these 2 pencils, and he did this thing, let the beat right. You can still find it. And then I was like, wow. I was like, man, because the thing is, a lot of people I'd rap for around me, because rap was not the norm, right? It was not something that was, they were impressed to a degree, right? But it wasn't something that they would indulge in, right? So you had to find creative ways of convincing them that, hey, this is dope, right? So you couldn't just rap. You had to do something more, right? And that was one of those tools that I used to get people's attention. Another thing is they love the guitar over there, country rock, that sound, right? It's there, right? So I got one of my friends one time, his name is Adam, and we did this show one time while I was in like grade 9 or 10, and we went to another high school. We ditched the last few periods of school and put on a show for their lunchtime. We ditched the whole second half of school, and then we put on a show for this other school, which is like 2 hours or an hour away. It was actually like 2 hours, and they had like a 30-minute to 45-minute lunch period, and in that period they had a choice to make, whether to eat or come see this show that's happening in the auditorium. I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, man, if it was me, there's no fucking way I'm gonna go see the show in the auditorium. I'm gonna go eat. Okay, I'm gonna go eat. I'm gonna do my thing. I'm gonna play ping pong. I was big into ping pong back then. I was like, I'm gonna be going, but I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm just gonna put on a show for whoever's there. I'm on my whole team with me. We're dancers and rappers. And then and my boy Adam Chapman, who played this guitar at the very end, he's gonna come on and blah blah blah. So anyways, we start out, as we're performing, there's only like, let's say 15, 20 people in the auditorium. The auditorium would fit, let's say 80, 100 people, right? Now, by the middle of the show, there's like, 1/3, going to 2/3 of the place filled, right? By the end, this place was definitely jumping and was packed up, right? And like when we started out, I remember I came on and started rapping in a cappella, because that was one of the first things. I was like, okay, my voice is something that attracts people, so I'm gonna start on a cappella. Then we're gonna get into a beat, and then my boy's gonna come out, and then he came out with the moonwalk, and everybody just went nuts. He came out with the moonwalk. He started doing this dance, and like, we were creative. I'm telling you, we put on shows, talent shows. You can ask anyone in Bathurst. We put on shows. And it was a good time. And all that kind of, put me to that point where you end up, hearing about me through all these other people. It's all from all that work, And then when I came into that show that you saw in that video, I remember I was in Ottawa in that video. And it was U Ottawa. Right.
Oh, was it U Ottawa? Okay, was it a talent show?
It wasn't a talent show. It was just a showcase, just a general showcase, right?
Okay.
And then I was like, hey, I spoke to one of my friends. I'm like, hey, man, I play the guitar. I'm like, hey, let's create something sick. And we did something sick, and people loved it. Did that pen tapping, and by then I was smooth with it. All right, so but man, I remember getting kicked out of classes.
What?
Like, I remember getting kicked out of classes because I'm tapping on the desk. I'm tapping on the desk. I'm rapping. Teacher's like, Armando, what are you doing? Get out. Like, everybody would enjoy it though. I'm like, hey man, like, I'm getting kicked out now, but it's gonna serve its purpose soon, right? And it served its purpose.
And would you think that you'd go back to rapping?
You see,
there is. So wait, just so our listeners know, if you want to find Armel's rap music online, you can find it on Spotify. You can find it on anywhere you can get music. It's VNCHY VNCHY.
Yes, sir.
So there is a language warning for sure. Don't listen to it around your kids.
For sure.
But go ahead.
Yeah. You see, you said 2 very important things just a while ago that play a very big part in where I'm moving musically.
Okay.
one of the very first, no, I'll touch on what you said in that after I set the grounds, or set the mood,
Okay.
with what's around it here. When I came into music, I heard something that was special. Okay. And what I heard, I wanted to explore. Right? I came into it very young. Once I arrived in Canada, I got an opportunity to explore it deeper. Okay? But two things played a factor in my exploration, because right before I explore, I have to make a decision on what direction I'm going to go. Right? Just metaphorically speaking, I have to make a decision. Out of all the decisions that were in front of me, I made a decision that seemed to be the best fit decision, which was rap music. Why? There's a couple of things. I'm black. It's popular. Coming from a background that was very heavy with drums, it seemed like the easiest transition of my exploration. There was an issue, though, that I faced. I remember when I was first in the plane coming over here, I said to myself, I was very young too. I said to myself, man, I get there, I'm never going to change. I'm not going to swear. I'm not going to be bad. Like, no, I'm never going to change, you know? The reason why I said that at that age, it goes to show you my foundations, right? I expanded my foundation and found myself more and more and more. But then at a certain point, I look at myself and I say, hey, look, like, in order to explore deeper, okay, this whole exploration is in fact an exploration of myself. Because as I'm connecting with the music, I'm connecting with myself. There is this whole outlook that is directed towards me. Now, if you imagine me and then these, let's see them as light beams coming towards me. This perspective that's coming towards me is one that looks at things as a separation from everything that's around, as far as, okay, you're rapping, you're entertaining, you have to do this, you have to do that. They separate what's happening from what's really happening, what's really around, right? But see, that music thing, branding of it, and the separation of that from the person is something that a lot of people these days more and more are not entertaining. They're not entertaining.
Okay.
They're being themselves more and more. So that's why you see a lot of artists doing such things as going independent and doing such things as speaking out and being more about everything, being more about their life rather than them feeding out to something superficial.
Okay, so instead of having a persona, they are being themselves.
They are being themselves. When I look at myself,
yeah,
music is something that I want to use as a tool to connect with people on a level that lets them look at themselves and connect with themselves. I don't think rap music for me is something that in itself does that. You know why? Because personally, I think there's too many words.
Really?
Too many words. I liked the whole aspect of getting, all this lyrical and blah, blah, blah. And now you see more artists doing the whole thing of less words and such. And it's something that is a thing, right? But then here's another issue. It shouldn't be a business.
Rapping shouldn't be a business? Or music shouldn't be a business?
Music shouldn't be a business.
What do you mean?
It can be a business.
Yeah.
Those that want to make it a business, you should let them make it a business. However, you yourself as the artist making it, you have to understand that the business is an extraction or a division out of the core, which is your identity. When you take the core that is your identity, like let's say your identity is 10, okay? And you divide 10 by 2, okay? You're going to have 5 individual pieces of 2, right? In these 2 pieces, there are 5 in each, and that is 10. Now, if you look at the 5 inside of the 2 pieces, that is the 10. 1 is business, 1 is photography, 1 is blah, blah, blah. That division is infinite. And then you get into logarithms, right? And a base of 10. And you see that when you find the log of a certain number between 1 and 10, you're going to see its representation in that grand, what I understand to be a grand division, right? And so you don't need to think about the business. Think about who you are. In that, you are going to get the actual profit that is in music. That is self-actualization. We have spoken about it in philosophy class when you talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs,
right,
and the very top being self-actualization.
Correct.
See, you can get to that in many ways. People can get to that gardening. People can get to that playing basketball. People can get to that looking at rocks. You know, music though can get you there fast.
Why do you think that is?
Because there's a vibration to it.
Is there something?
It's the vibration that makes you think about something. If I put a vibration, a sequence of vibrations, and I put it in a minor key, and I put it to a certain pattern, and I get a girl to sing a certain rhythm, and then I get a piano to play really softly, and I put the BPMs down, I could make you cry. Right? Because these vibrations will do something to you. They'll do something to your mind. Right? And that's where the power in music comes. And you can take this power and you can actually put it into something physical and see great things happen. Like you can make things levitate from vibrations.
Like you can water when they do that. When they put like, I saw this video where they're projecting sound wave downwards and one's going upwards, and they put water droplets in it and just floating. And, you know, I was like, what?
That's interesting. In fact, you could even do that with, like, let's say your glass right there.
Yeah.
You could have a thing underneath it, like what do they call it? Like a coaster when you put you can have something there that levitates your glass, and you can do that in a few ways. You know, I have yet to understand the deep mathematics of it yet to give you a detailed understanding, but I know that there's a few things that people can think about as far as vibrations go, and as far as even magnetism goes, and you can explore that and see how you can do a number of things. And there's already people that are making things quote unquote levitate
by using vibration.
By using vibrations. I've seen it before on YouTube. I've even seen them make a light out of, in the water. They had, similar to what you mentioned, all these what you would call frequencies targeting a certain spot, and in that spot there was this little, it looked like a droplet almost.
Okay.
It was a sphere, and in that there was this little light beam that would start getting created. This little light that would start. Yeah, you could find that on YouTube. You could even just by typing in "making light from vibrations or frequency,"
right,
you will see that. Even Nikola Tesla said that the mysteries of the universe lie behind, I think it was frequency, vibration, and energy. Okay. Something along those lines.
He was a smart man.
Yeah. So that's the whole thing, is that whenever I am rapping, okay, it is something for me personally that I will use at a certain point. But there's other things more important than me rapping, like me playing instruments. That's why I ventured into the piano, and now I'm venturing into the guitar, and I am doing what people would call producing, but all I'm doing is putting a small repeating pattern, stacking them on top of each other, creating a sound, a foundation that I could then do a number of things on. I could take that foundation and put it behind a video where I'm speaking, because that's another thing that's more important than me rapping, me talking. Because one thing that's more effective for me than if I was to put it in a hierarchy, I'm a better speaker than I am a rapper. And that's because I'm a better thinker than I am all of those things, right? It's all within my identity. Again, a division of things, right? Other people, these perspectives don't see that division, but I do.
So to answer the question of whether you would rap again, it's a matter of how you would, insofar as it might benefit someone, but it doesn't limit you. You will explore and do other things beyond rapping. Like, rapping is not the end all be all for your music.
Yeah, I don't want to, and I don't want, yes, and I want people to know that, you know, yes, I rapped, but when you speak about the world that is the rapping world, the hip hop world, I'm not in that world. That's what a lot of people don't get. You know,
what do you mean you're not in that world?
I'm not in that world in the sense of physically when I got out here, it was just the easiest thing to associate myself with.
Because
right?
because of what you mentioned, you were black and you'd play drums.
Exactly. And I'm very young and immature, and so I need to explore through the easiest route. Right. And so, hey, look, rap music.
Yeah.
Right. But then there's a foundation that was deeper than what I was taught. Because everybody that comes here, even if you see little kids, whatever, they have personalities and they have certain things that attract them and certain things that don't. Right. And for me, I want to connect with people on a level that even has a healing factor to it. And I feel like the perspectives of the hip hop world is not something I share.
Interesting.
I don't share the perspectives. I don't share the perspectives on many dimensions.
So do you think that rap music, do you find that the rap music, rap culture that you're talking about, the hip hop culture, the things that you disagree with, is it the sense in which, because I know you can be very controversial online by posting these questions, you know, you know, you're always posting these, but is it that you disagree with the culture that is being rapped about in hip hop music, or what is it that you disagree with? Is it the violence,
I don't have a problem or disagree with anything about that. It's more that I don't think there is a such thing as separation. When you take something, I get it. It's fun to make genres of music. I get it. It's fun to, you know, say that, to pick teams, play a sport and have different teams and separate people. I get it. There are fun aspects to it. But then there are what I understand to be unnecessary aspects of separation whenever you're going to take it and you're going to make it a lifestyle. And then whenever I do something, you're going to use that as the thing to understand me. And you're going to go and use that as if everything works in that lens. And then it's going to be a lifestyle.
Okay. And you don't want to be trapped in that box.
I'm not trapped in that box. And people are feeling the reverberations of it. If you think of it as me making a series of you know, whenever you drop something in water and it makes these what you would call ripples, right? I'm making these series of ripples, and people are feeling those ripples from the impact of me not being in that box. And so they end up seeing and hearing me speak about me not being in that and me not sharing that, because everything is the same and everything is for people to use, right? It's fun to have a lifestyle and a style and, you know, represent it, and, you know, that's all fun. I get it. But when you look around you and you look close, you'll notice something. Everything is the same.
What do you mean?
I met this guy through one of my friends who was a pilot. Okay. And I asked him, I said, hey man, you know, when you're flying, how does it feel? And he said, oh, you know, it's nothing. It doesn't, you know, another one of those things. It's like, oh, and I thought to myself, I was like, that's interesting, because if someone was to ask me, how's walking? I would say, yeah, well, you know.
It's just what it is.
It's what it is.
I do it every day.
Yeah. So I asked him, I was like, man, are you telling me that flying is like walking for you? And he's like, well, he put it like, he's like, I mean, it's different, but like, yeah, it is. And if you notice a lot of things, it comes down to that. It's a paradox. Like, it is or it isn't, but it is. You can find all the reasons for why it isn't. And you can find them until you're satisfied. You will never be satisfied, actually. You can find them until you fall off the earth, right? You can look for them and just, you know, try to find the end of the earth. But you can do the very same for it being the same, right? And so that's why you find all these people on different, that's why there's different teams, you know, and it's usually divided in two. You take that two and you can do so many things with it.
Right.
So I think it's important for me to represent my identity, and then within my identity, separation just doesn't exist. Doesn't.
Does your exploration of your identity play into you asking these what people would consider very controversial questions? You know, you like to stir the pot sometimes. You know,
I love to stir the pot.
You know, like, I mean, one thing that I think this was a while back, maybe a few months back, you were asking, I'm not going to say the word because I don't want to get in trouble saying the word.
No, I wouldn't mind if we weren't on there, you know.
But they're like, I think you asked, why is it that only black people can say the N-word? You know? And, you know, there were a bunch of people posting, it's like, oh no, because of the culture, the baggage that's in it. But then you were like, well, you know, is it something special only with black people?
Yeah.
You know, and then the question of, is it only the African Americans who have a direct descendants to slaves can say this word? Can all Africans say this word?
So many questions.
You know?
Yeah.
So is this you asking these tough questions? That's part of the exploration that's going on.
It is a degree of the exploration, you know, this degree that is in so many dimensions, you know, but the whole point of it was that question particularly stemmed from when I looked, because when we talk about the aspect of me stirring the pot and exploring through stirring the pot, I have gotten better at stirring it very, you know, when you do something dangerous but much better,
very precise,
right, you know. Yeah, I've gotten better.
You're not just stirring it.
Yeah, I started like that though, you know. I started like that and I loved it, and that was one of those things. And I realized that a lot of people just are not ready to talk about it, but I'll talk about it right now. And that's the thing, that when you talk about skin, you know how people talk to you and tell you, oh, don't focus on things you can't control.
Yeah.
Who made a choice that they're going to be born that color?
Yeah. Nobody.
So why am I going to focus on it?
Right.
It comes that simple. It starts that simple. For me, it didn't. It's just recently that I found that simple way of putting it. But when you even put in the complexities of biology and such, you'll see that there is no difference. And when you talk about the differences that are in the culture, you can find the differences until your face goes blue, but then you can find all the similarities too. But when you look at it, you'll see that the same thing is present in all these different cultures. And so when it comes to the word, I understand the effects that come from other people hearing it, right? But me, myself, I think it's being presently demonstrated that word means nothing, because it actually means a lot more than people have made it mean. And
it means a lot more.
Exactly. It's a paradox. It means nothing.
It means nothing because it's so trivially used.
It means nothing because the word itself is an explanation, an attempt to explain how you feel.
Okay.
But it means so much more because you can feel an infinite amount of things when you say somebody is your friend.
Yeah.
And you now replace that with the N-word,
Yeah.
it can mean so many depths, because there's some people that call other people their N-word and then they backstab them. There's some people that call the people their N-word and they don't even know the person.
Right.
And there's some people that say, you're my N-word, and they will die for you.
Yeah.
And there's some people that say, you're my friend, and they don't even care about you. And there's some people that say, you're my friend, and they would die for you.
Interesting.
It means nothing, but it means an infinite amount of things.
Yeah.
All these things are the same. So this word that shakes people up so much, and I get the fact
so much.
I get the fact that I'm black. A lot of people, it kind of catches them off guard. But again, I can't control what. I'm not even black for all I care for, because I did not make any choice to anything. I'm everything. I can be anything you think I am, because in actuality, I'm everything. That's why I met so many people, and through all these people, I learned so many things. And people can say, oh, geez, you make music like this person, and you like this, and you play sports like this, and you look up to this, and you actually, somebody can take you and then see so many different influences from who you are, right? That is exactly why you are not any color. You can say that if you want to represent, and it's fun. Again, these are things that are fun, like have fun. Like you have fun doing that, have fun. But at some point, that vibration that you are at, if we represent you as a vibration, it's going to have to get a lot more what we would call, I want to use the word consonant. What I mean by that is that it's only certain sequences, only certain numbers, only certain frequencies that have that effect that is beautiful, right? That's why if you you can see it on YouTube when they put sand over a certain plate, and they put that plate but they have to put it to a certain frequency. You see the things moving first as it gets closer and closer and closer. You see it moving, and that's why it's not beautiful yet, right? But then when it hits that number, something beautiful happens.
So so when it comes to this word particularly, you're saying, hey, look, ultimately we're human beings. That's what we are. I mean, the skin color, we all have skin color, but it's just a degree of whatever that mellow, whatever it is, whatever the thing that makes you darker or lighter.
It's not even important.
So you're saying, look, ultimately we're just human beings. Nobody chooses to be this. Nobody chooses to be black. Nobody chooses to be yellow, brown.
If I was to say something, what I'm saying, what you're saying right now, if I was to put in a few words and exemplify my personality, you can be anything you want to be. Because I like that aspect of anarchy too. There's chaos and order, and order and chaos. And literally, you can be anything you want to be. And I've recently understood that no matter what I say to certain people, they'll understand what they're ready to understand and what they see. I can say what I say to you, but you will hear what you hear. You get me? And so that's why you can say something to somebody and they'll think you're a psycho. And then you say the same thing to somebody else. They'll be like, oh, you're onto something. You see what you're seeking, you see, because what you're interacting with is actually yourself, right? It gets deep. What you're interacting with is actually yourself. And so, therefore, I tell people they can be whatever they want to be, because actually when you even speak about you're a human being, and you'll see many people recently, they are pushing the definitions of a human being. And that's for a reason.
What are you referring to?
I'm referring to everything from identity, everything to sexual orientation, everything to organization of relationships, because there's all these different patterns to relationships, and we're seeing so many different dynamics pop out. A lot of people will argue the whole right and wrong, but again, it's fun. Choose a side. It's fun, but it's happening in front of you. What's happening is real. People will like to argue whether what's happening is good or bad, but it's happening. And you have to accept that it's happening. and try to see how that fits in the dimensions that you have already come to understand, because it's happening. I ask people, okay, well, you think it doesn't fit. Okay, you think it doesn't fit. So if you're saying you think it doesn't fit, then you're saying that you possibly know what fits. Okay, well, you can search until your face goes blue and you're in the ground. But at the end of the day, we have been searching forever. Where we stand now, we stand on the shoulders of those that came before us. And that is for a very, very long line. And people will say, okay, we're very recent in the existence of the universe. But the matter of the fact is that off of all this time we've spent on here, we've only understood. We can say it's a lot, but the reason why we can also say it's so little is because we actually do not know the quantity of it.
We don't know the limits.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why we can say both and we can't say either, right?
Right.
Because we don't know the limits. Therefore, it's happening in front of you. That means now you can try to fit somewhere. And what I have come to kind of ponder upon, the thought that's fallen into my head, is that there is an experience that we are subject to in the term of spiritually, okay? That we feel that we are more, or we are inside this case that is the human body. We feel that there is something in here, and that thing that is in here is not subject to all these laws that are down here. In fact, only down here do we see these effects of it physically, but the things that begin are actually starting in these dimensions of what we cannot see, what we cannot understand, because in fact, everything that we've come to study is the things that we can measure. But you can get into the quantum discussions of things and see that at these small, to even say the word small is not the right word, at this level, that's this minute level, there is something happening, and you're just seeing it's not even the end of it, but you've missed out already on so much information, right? Now you're getting the physical information. So what is being projected towards us right now is another one of those effects, right? There's something we do not understand, and it fits, and it's happening.
So when it comes to, say, base reality, right? You and I sitting here, the microphone here, computer here. When you say you can be anything, to what extent do you mean you can be anything? To the extent where, can you be a dragon? You know, we have, to bring in identity politics, we have people who are now identifying as all sorts of things. You know, 60-year-old man identifies as a 7-year-old girl. You know, is that a possibility? Is that something? Is that logical? When you say you can be anything, are you saying anything that's also logically impossible, or just anything that's logically possible?
Well, I'll say this. You can be whatever people are going to let you be.
Interesting. Because
you can be anything you want to be, but there's certain things that are around us. If you think of it like a bowling alley, you can throw this bowling ball anywhere, but if it goes too far, you're going to get into what I think is called the gutter, and it's got no choice but to fall in line, because it's going to be forced to be in line. So that's why when a collection of people are together, certain things, certain discoveries end up being stumbled upon. Like if you go and start killing everyone, it's not going to be good for me, so you can't do that. Even though you can do whatever you want to, if you do that, eventually certain things are going to happen to you, and nobody can stop that. It's like the gutter, right? And so we are exploring things, and we are just we're pushing to find that gutter. We've gotten so precise that we don't move by tens anymore. We move by milliseconds. We're that precise and that accurate in the way that we're moving, in the sense of our advancements or explorations as a society, Or, we just recently realized that, hey, we can let people love whoever they want to love and it'll be okay. And we've pushed it, and yeah, it's been something for a long time, but anyways, we pushed it, and then we're figuring out, okay, they can be a sexual orientation that they believe they want to be, and people are fighting about it, but they have no choice. They are gonna push it. But see, the whole point is, like you asked, can you be that extreme that you just pointed out right there? I think if there's a society that's willing to let you, yes, you can. And because you can, if there's a society willing to let you, that is very much something you can do. However, there are effects that you're going to have to face, like effects for anything, right?
You mean consequences to your actions, or
consequences as far as you yourself exploring yourself and it's your job to find your truth. Society can't do that for you. So, excuse me. So you can do these things, but out of these things, you have to find your balance, right? People are finding not recently, for a long time, that if you have an excess of, sexual activity, you're not going to be very balanced, right? You're trying to be balanced here. People are finding out if you have an excess of sexual activity, you're going to have a hard time being loyal, right? And that's a big part of balance. Right? It's all these things that are your job, because if you don't do it, you don't have to worry about jail. You have to worry about how you're going to sleep at night, right? How are you going to sleep at night? So what you're going to do is going to have effects physically, yes, but psychologically also. And when you decide that you want to pass information down to a young child that you care for very much, you got to hand down some very good information. Information that is going to have, because everything is about probability, yeah? So the information has to be so good that even when the kid does whatever the kid wants to, it's going to be like a rock, like an anchor that they won't fall too far.
Okay.
Because that information was so good. Yeah. So it sucks whenever you hand down information to a child and you just watch the child fall into madness. Yeah. It's all about you, how you're going to interact with yourself.
Right. So what do you think then of the, within our current culture, the identity of victimhood that's so prevalent? Because presumably, of course, you're always going to find some rotten apple in a big group. But for the most part, I think the people who play a sort of victimhood mentality, they're not necessarily doing it out of bad intention. They're doing it out of good intention. Like one common one that you and I have discussed about is certain people will say the continent of Africa is in shambles only because of colonization, and they kind of just keep it that very trivial, simple level. Yeah, and they're not saying it necessarily because they just want to play the victim game. I think some of them are genuinely think, hey, it seems like this is the root cause, and we're just going to keep it here. So then when it comes to these kinds of people, people who play a lot of victim cards, what would you say to that? What would you say to them?
Well, what can be observed when we look at the example of, specifically because, I have a bias towards it because I'm from there, right? When we look at the continent of Africa and we look at what has happened to Africa and continues to happen to Africa, a number of things have always happened and continue to happen. Actually, the same thing always has happened and continues to happen. And that's that there are enemies that come from two directions, internally and externally. Everything is just working internally and externally in sync, right? So the issue here that a lot of people can put on the external factors, such as colonizers or multinational companies and political parties and, all these other countries, whatever they can put on them, they can also put on the individuals. Actually, they could most of the time put even more on the corruption that is internally within. It's so easy to put the corruption on the leaders because, in fact, I feel like the leaders have some of the toughest jobs to do. And the corruption is actually within the heart of men and women. Yeah. Generally. Yeah. The corruption is within the heart of all. Right. And so when you look at corruption within a government, I have observed that if there's corruption within a government, it is because it is within the people. Because the government is only a small percentage of the huge population that is the people. And the government actually has supporters that are in the population. And it's the government's job to evolve all the way to the point where everyone, for the most part, because it's a probability thing, is content, right? However, that victimhood that comes from blaming the external, again, it can be fun because everything is poetic too, so there's a poetry to it. It's like everything else. It can be fun. You can do that if you want to, and you can learn from it. That's why I can't tell you that it's wrong or it's right, because there are so many ways to that destination that is balance, right? But through it, you will end up seeing that the power, the safety, the answer is in you, is for you to, the question is for you to answer, right? The question of what should I do? What should they do? Because you see the problem and you're looking for the answer. Well, guess what? It's in you. That's why a lot of people, there's this thought that is even manifested in quotes in front of me, which was, you change yourself, you change the world. You work on yourself, you work on the world. Because a lot of people can talk about how we're in a tyrannical society, in a tyrannical world, and it's so racist and it's so such and such. Yeah. But when I look at my life and I look at everything that has happened in front of me, I swear to you, I cannot say I came from a racist, tyrannical world. And I came from Africa. I did not see an indoor washroom until I came here. Right. And my first interaction with a white person, he spat on my face and called me a nigger. Really? And I cannot tell you that I have experienced or have come from a racist or tyrannical world. And the reason is actually because the world that you come from, you yourself are actually so big that to call you a world is, again, that example of a small division, the small fives in the grand two that make the 110. It is, you can actually be as big as a universe. We can even do it scientifically. We look at your eye, it can look like a galaxy. We look at your cells, they work in the same way that everything else in the universe is working. And in fact, we look inside of you and the same elements in you is the same elements in a star. You can be so huge. And so that's why, if you want your world to be racist,
you can make it racist.
That's your world.
Really? That's
your world. It's not my world.
Interesting. But this is like in stark contrast to what many people would say. It's many cultural elites would say, no, we are indeed in a racist world. We are living in it. Yes. It's everywhere around us. But you're saying the total opposite. Even though someone called you the N-word and spat on you, which is insane. Yeah. But you're like, no, I don't live in a racist world. Why would you say that, though? I'm sure you've gone to be honest,
chronologically, if we put it in chronological order, after I got my face spat on, I beat his ass. It's only after a long time
that you can say this,
maturing and thinking critically and looking and evolving and growing and finding myself that I can say that I did not come from a racist world, right? Because you look at something from a small perspective, like the way an ant looks at a hill, right? That's Mount Everest to it. Then the way you look at it is completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why
To transcending whatever has occurred.
essentially I'm transcending myself. Because the thing is, what other people say to you, and that's why I have a huge issue with words, and that's why I have a huge issue with rap music, because it's so big on words. I'm telling you, I love words in battle rap. I love that because that's where words are really nice. You know, words are just wow. You know, but I have a huge issue with me myself saying so much because
you want to say a lot with less words.
But the reason is because words are not enough. I think the strongest things don't need to be said. I think the strongest things do not need any words. In fact, that's why the deaf can get around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
That's interesting.
That's why the deaf could get around even before sign language.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? That's why there's been some great samurais in the times of the Japanese when, you know, the whole samurai thing was so huge. I have stumbled upon some great samurais who were deaf, but they could connect so well with the things around them. Yeah? And it's like words are in fact, I've come to find to like a thought that just has grown. You know, there's certain things I think about for a lot of things I think about for a long time. And one of the things was the ineffectiveness of words. Mm-hmm. It's actually one of the first things we have done when you look at our evolution, you know, even though people can say, okay, no, this and this happened before that. I think language is one of the things we realize, no, I have to be able to communicate with you right now and I have to be able to convince you. I need assurance that me and you are on the same page.
Yep. Yeah.
Because people were able to communicate way before they were able to say words and put an alphabet to it and make sure that they could put it on paper. Yeah. They just needed assurance. What's the whole thing of assurance? That's the whole thing of a lessening of faith, a lessening of hope. Not hope, more faith.
Okay.
Yeah. Digressing yourself to that, what people can describe as a lower frequency. So when people say things like, we come from this and here, and they try to convince you of something.
Yeah.
The truth doesn't need any convincing. The truth doesn't need any preacher. The truth doesn't need any one to advocate for it because it's in everything.
It seems like truth would need an advocate, you know, because I would disagree because it would seem that some certain truths need to be advocated for. So an example would be, you know, I'm trying to think of an example. So say a scientific truth. We're talking about scientific truth. Let's say the laws of thermodynamics or something, right?
Okay.
That's true.
Yeah.
But if no one taught you that, you would never know. So you need an advocate, a teacher to teach you that.
That's
and then
fair.
you can go in and, you know, do all the equations behind it. You're like, and then you come to a self-realization. Yeah. Oh yeah, because what happens is somebody can tell you the truth of something.
Yeah.
But there are certain truths wherein you have to actually come to that yourself, and then you have this like an epiphany. You're like, oh, this is true in that sense.
Yeah.
But I think certain truths need to be advocated for. You know, you gotta teach people things. I mean,
yeah. See, the example you used, I agree with it wholeheartedly, the truth. But you see, when I think of an advocate, I think of somebody who is trying to convince someone that something is true because the other person doesn't believe them. Because you see, when we speak about your example, very much so, somebody needs to teach you, something so, you know, detailed and critical, like the laws of thermodynamics. And, you know, when you get into even the deep mathematics of such things as calculus and such, you know, and you can get a lot from someone else teaching you. Yeah. But you can also see that the first person kind of who, let's say, discovered or stumbled upon them, there was something in front of them that just, they could not, that was so evident that they could manipulate it. And so it being so evident, if you disagree with it and you're trying to get something done and you need this thing that is so evident to get it done, but you don't believe it, then when you try it, you're going to fail, and you're going to fail over and over and over again until you apply this thing. That's why when I start speaking to you about the laws of thermodynamics, I can act as a catalyst for it. I can act as a as a influence as far as, regurgitating what I have just stumbled upon or what I have observed. However, this thing speaks for itself, because when you try it, you will fail. And that is why you are right. However, these things that are truth, they are truth before we are able to explain them.
Yes, that's true.
That's why whatever can come out of you hearing them is whatever you make it to be, but it's not important.
Okay.
In this grand scheme of what I am trying to articulate as communication. Yeah. Whenever now I am speaking, right? That's why when we're talking about me making music, I also don't like speaking so much. I understand my voice is something that has a pretty cool frequency. Yeah. So when I speak, a lot of people can indulge in that. Yeah. And it can distract them. But see, there are more powerful things that I want to help people connect with. And that is them connecting with themselves. So one of the nice things I want to do is play music, create a space where there are no words. And that's why classical music is so powerful. And when you look at all this music that's coming out today, a lot of things are sampled from this and sampled from that, but it goes all the way to be just sounds. And to people, when you ask people what's just sounds, they'll say classical music. A lot of people just say classical music is just sounds. It's just a bunch of sounds and it's put together cool. They thought it was cool. But at the end of the day, it's this grand 10 that can be devised into these small 5s, right? That we now consume at only a 2-minute and 30-second portion. Yeah. See, I want to give people, and that's why when people ask me, "You're a musician," well, they ask me, "Okay, why are you a musician?" They don't usually ask me, but I tell them why I'm a musician. I say, I'm a musician, but I'm a musician. Yes, I can play instruments. I'm getting better at it too, but that's not why I'm a musician. I'm a musician because my life is the musical staff, this musical sheet. Every decision I make is a note. Okay. And when you play it from beginning to end, you will now hear the music of my life. Yeah. That is why I'm a musician. Yeah. Because every decision I make, when you play from beginning and end, it's going to have a beautiful ring to it. Yeah?
Okay. Interesting. So you're seeing your whole life as a long piece of music.
100%. So that's what it is. That's how I understand it.
Do you think people in this world would live a better life if they saw it as that? If they said, look, at the end of your life, let's just hypothetically say, it's gonna your life. We're gonna play back your life. It's gonna come down to did you create good music or crappy music? And you were able to convince people of this. Do you think that the world or the people you convinced would live a better life if they had this meta view?
Honestly, I think if people have a meta view, it would serve a better purpose as far as connecting things, because you have to kind of zoom in and zoom out to connect the dots. It's not important that they see it the way I see it, and that's why there's so many people on this planet. Even though everyone is connected, and even though there's that grand one, there's so many people because there are infinite amount of possibilities, and the grand one is interested in exploring itself. That's where we are. We explore ourselves, and we explore ourselves in our choices, and we each have a personality. When we take these personalities and we put them together, we get this great company. Then we look, this company can still be corrupt, and then we look at it as a whole country, and then we're like, okay, well, the government, it can get corrupt. And then we look at it as a connection of nature. And then we see, within nature, there's even, natural disasters. There's death even in there. And then we have no choice but to see how everything is actually, in fact, one. The things that you disagree with are important. As important as the things that you agree with. It's not important that you're convinced of it. In fact, it's so not important that you're convinced of it that it's going to keep happening no matter how much you advocate against it. It is going to keep happening. And what is happening is important to accept because it's happening. It comes back to what I was saying before, whether you like it or not. It's fun to talk about it, but it's happening. Accept it. Yeah. So that's why these two things that are what you accept and what you don't accept work as one, exploring itself, which is why you play an important role in finding out what it is that you have to focus on so you can contribute to that grand collection of information.
So do you think that there is a meta truth that transcends culture and time and people?
Yes.
I think there is.
Transcends in the sense that
it's true objectively, no matter what people say about it.
I wouldn't use the word objectively. I would say it's so true that no matter what you do, you cannot avoid it. I would say, and if I was to even divide that into something even more simple, you have a choice, but you don't have a choice. So you can explore no matter what you want to explore, right? But there's certain laws that you're going to end up, no one has to convince yourself of it. You're gonna bump into them over and over again. Like if you go and you just murder and you just do all these horrible things, a lot of horrible things psychologically are gonna happen to you, and you gotta put yourself back together. And I can go on and on with the amount of tragedies, and we see that if you are somebody who doesn't react to these tragedies, there's even something more sinister within that has to be balanced. And it's so sinister that we're willing to drug you so you just don't do anything, because even that's better than that thing that is within you that you cannot fix. You see? That's why what is this meta truth that transcends is so huge that we can completely ignore it, and it's still gonna be present in our lives and working in our lives.
Okay, so you don't want to use objective because it. Well, why would you not use the objective for this case?
I would not use objective because of the point that ignorance is bliss. What I mean by ignorance is bliss is that what you seeing something and explaining it is not important. Now, see, you are in a great position, you yourself as an individual, because you are thinking coherently, you are thinking critically, and you're able to access a number of resources. A lot of people can't. All the way to people having a disability, mentally, whatever, right? So if we go back to the laws of nature and survival of the fittest, those that are disabled cannot go. But then there's something deeper that we realize, and it's that, hey, no, I can help those that are disabled continue. So no, that is actually not the case. And then as you keep going, you start seeing, when you look at it from a macro, that even if you cannot explain what's happening around you, it's not important. Because what you cannot explain is actually at the core of it all. Even though I cannot say that person who's a vegetable is doing anything, the fact that I cannot say is more important than all the things I can say. Because the things that I cannot explain are at the core of everything I can explain. So the objectiveness of things, it is something that is resourceful and very helpful whenever we're getting into the details and we're getting into precision and we're getting into creativity and making engineering. The details of what's objective is very important. But even if we couldn't do that and we were nothing but a cell inside of something, or we were a cockroach, right? Things would still be organized and working just fine.
So do you see people or persons, individuals, as a collection of multiple other individuals like cells and whatever else? Or do you see, in your opinion, do you see people or persons as a whole, a united whole, or individuals?
I'll be honest with you. I'll be very honest with you.
Yeah.
Because I have to be, because I'm speaking with words, not writing. I'm so used to interviews of writing. So I had to be careful with what I say, but I'll be honest with you now that I'm speaking. when I think about how I see people,
Yeah.
everyone in the grand scheme of things, right? I see everyone the way you would observe a cloud of smoke. Yeah. When you observe a cloud of smoke, it's just this thing that's in motion. Yeah. It's just this thing that's in motion.
Mm-hmm.
If you even look at pictures of what the farthest we can observe all these multi-universes, the farthest structure you'll notice of reality, you'll notice that as we zoom out of the world and zoom out of the universe, everything kind of starts looking like neurons, and it starts looking like these connections of like a spider web, you know? And that is synonymous to this whole thing of a cloud of smoke, because there's this motion that's happening. And if you zoom into this cloud of smoke, you will realize that there is what can be described as infinite intelligence. Yeah. And this infinite intelligence, okay, expresses itself through what can be also described as infinite energy. Yeah. And this infinite energy, it gets so precise that it has consciousness. And this consciousness is also so precise, right, that it can work with the macro and the micro. And it can look at them as opposites, or it can look at them as a whole. But the way I look at it is literally just a motion that is going. And when we get detailed, we now start thinking, you now get into your mind. When you zoom in into this motion, this cloud of smoke, when you zoom into the farthest level, you end up getting into your head, and now you're thinking. Why? Because the individual is the farthest, yeah? The smallest you can get into this, the individual. But in fact, the individual and that macro are one. The same way that poles of a magnet. In fact, if you break a magnet in two, or you cut it in two, the poles are not all of a sudden just going to be on one magnet and the other. It splits into the poles now go onto the other magnet, right? So now you split that into two, right? And now you got 4 poles, right? On these 2 magnets, right? It's the same. They're one. They're not opposites. They're actually one. Yeah. And that's the same thing from the individual to the macro, which is society or whatever,
okay,
all the way to that smoke that is everything.
So you
That's always
would you say that we are all part of one large consciousness, similar to Hinduism or Buddhism?
Yes, I would very much say we're all part of one large consciousness. Yeah. Yeah, we're all feeding into one large.
We're all feeding. So do you think in the future we'll get to a point where we can access each other's minds?
1,000%.
Yeah?
1,000%. We're already seeing that already, because there's a lot of
through
people.
what's like social media?
Exactly. A lot of people are putting things on social media and they're not even thinking about other people seeing them. They're just like venting. And it's almost subconscious how some people are just doing things, and then they take it back, and it can even be conscious, because they do it consciously, but they don't critically think about it. And when you look at critical thinking and you look at just being conscious, critical thinking and consciousness can be synonymous to consciousness and unconsciousness. Critical thinking would be consciousness, and not thinking critically can be unconsciousness. Yeah, it's all one and the same. So, all to the point where now when we talk about technology, they can tap into your thoughts. We can see, Elon Musk is this thing called Neuralink that he's working on, right? And it's very much connected though it's working through physical parameters. It's not the way we just naturally think of mind reading, right? But there is something linked there. Yeah, that's working. And we're just going to get better with this technology. And I think at some point we will be able to get vivid information from just what you're thinking. Yeah. In fact, because we can do it physically, we can also do it not in a non-physical way. In fact, I think there's always been people that have been able to do that in a non-physical way. I think so. What I mean is that the things that we describe as the paranormal, okay, is the things that a lot of people have a hard time wrapping their mind around, because they're trying to measure things. Yeah. Well, what can happen in the paranormal can also happen in the physical. Yeah.
When you say paranormal, you're talking non-material or some sort of...
Non-material, right? So the non-material working with the material world. Getting to the non-material world through the material world is an example of me using Neuralink to figure out what you want without you having to type it in. Yeah. Even though it's very physical, there are things that are happening at the very beginning that are non-physical. And I'm extracting that through the physical. Well, you can do that by working with the non-physical consciously, all right, and affecting the physical. As simple as your thoughts attracting things. That's one of the simple ways. Like the people will dilute it to the law of attraction, but the actual fact of the matter is, when you put out this thought, right, and you focus on it for so much, your physical is gonna follow. So if you think about getting in shape so much, you're gonna start looking up how to do it, and you're gonna end up spending the money to buy the things, and you're gonna do it.
Right. Right.
That's a very simple way.
So you're talking. So you would make the distinction in that our thoughts, our intentionalities, our mind generally is non-material.
Exactly.
And it can affect our material self. Yeah. So what would you say to someone who doesn't believe that? Doesn't believe that that we are only physical, only material. There's nothing immaterial about it. Our mind is just our consciousness is just an illusion, like Daniel Dennett, the philosopher.
I would tell them that's okay. They don't need to be convinced, because it all comes back to the truth, not needing an advocate. So what happens here is that you're going to explore the physical, right? And it's one of those things that a lot of people don't like to hear, because there's no winner, right? And it's only at the end of your life when you'll be able to answer for yourself, right? But the whole thing is, you're going to do all the physical things you possibly can do. And then when you're on your deathbed, you're going to think of all the non-physical things. You're going to think about, why didn't I, call my mom a little more? Why didn't I be more nicer to my, brothers, sisters? Why wasn't I, why was I so mean to so many people? You're going to think about things like that. Yeah. And you can look at it. You can look at quotes of people on their deathbed. They speak about non-physical things. They're not talking about, oh man, I wish I made 10 more millions or 100 more millions, So at that point, it's like, you're not thinking about that. In fact, I follow a guy, this guy's podcast, his name is Jocko,
Jocko Willink. Yeah, man.
And it's very important. I think it's very important for everybody to work with the knowledge of the experience that comes from, not knowledge, but work with the experiences of soldiers, because death is one of those things that we try to turn an eye away, and act like it's not there. We ignore
it as much as possible.
Exactly. But those that run at it face first with bravery, right? They can teach you a lot. They can connect the things you're struggling with. Yeah. And you will see that even for them, one big thing that I ended up hearing is how when they come back home from war, now they're worrying about money, they're worrying about this, they're worrying about that, they're worrying about that. And then when they go to war, now they're like, man, they might get excited, but something that happens to a lot of them is that they want to be with the loved ones. Now they're thinking about their mom, thinking about all those people, when they get in those close to death interactions, they're thinking about that. And that's what they look forward to when they're going home. They're looking forward to that, And so that is very much at the core of it, even if you think the physical is everything, that is okay, because the truth needs no advocate. Yeah. When you work with the physical, you will realize that it doesn't matter if you can run 1,000,000 miles per hour, it's not going to change the fact that if you're running 1,000,000 miles per hour while you're depressed, it means nothing. Yeah. You can jump 10,000 feet and fly anywhere you want to in a blink of an eye. You can get in a nice car and, get anywhere faster than anybody. You can get in a rocket and go to Mars, all you want. But if you go to Mars depressed, it doesn't mean anything. Yeah. That's why a lot of people are forgetting. Yeah. That's why when you listen to certain scientists, like recently, Neil deGrasse Tyson was on the Joe Rogan show and podcast recently, and a lot of people were chewing him out because he was very, what's the word for it? He was He was just cutting him off so much. He was
Who's cutting who off?
Neil was cutting Joe Rogan off so
okay.
much. He was so, I wouldn't say obnoxious, but he's just, just
Like
cutting
rude?
not rude, but
Abrupt?
abrupt. His personality is just so abrupt. It's like he knows what you're going to say before you even say it. And then what he's going to say, he's expecting it to be the end of it because he knows so much. And so even when you say something, he's going to tell you the details of the things he knows. And then the thing is, for the audience, you hear him say all these details. And as impressive as they are, they come out so shallow because you're like, they mean nothing.
Interesting.
Because what Joe Rogan is trying to get to is that thing that's inside that you feel, right? The fact that you feel that there's energy that can be put out and it can be put out without having to, when you talk about the vision of Nikola, and you talk about, even the climate, and you talk about so many things happening, there's a lot of things that scientists, right, will just get so technical and so detailed. But the thing is, the details don't matter because ignorance is bliss. What you feel is actually the only thing that's important, because what you feel is what's real. Yeah. So you go to Mars depressed, you're going to feel that. That's going to affect everything. That's why depression can even change the colors you see, bro.
Really?
It really can. I know someone who was depressed, someone very close to me, and they told me literally every color they saw was gray. They couldn't see color. They couldn't. And they painted. One of the exercises was to use these crayons and a kid, the thing a kid would do, just color in the lines of this princess book, And once they did it, they were like, wow, like they could see colors, but it like what you see is not important. It doesn't feel like, you know what I mean? When you see green, when you see blue, you feel something. It was all the same to them. It was gray, And so all this, when they painted and filled in the color in the lines, all of a sudden they were seeing beauty again. And it was like something so big for them, That's why what you feel is what's real, man. That's why people kill themselves, even if they're rich. Because what they feel is what's real. Yeah. That's why people will kill themselves, just because you won't let them love who they want to love. It doesn't matter, how much money they got or whatever, how many girls are around them. That's why some people will do crazy things, that some people might deem as crazy even, and it can be crazy physically, but they will go to such lengths because the physical does not matter, because what they feel is all that's there.
It's reminds me of how during the Enlightenment era once we made the world very mechanical, we started understanding the world as a big machine and human beings as big machines. What ended up happening is that we split our experience into two. One is the measurable, the quantitative things you can quantify, you know, and then the non-quantifiable things. So the qualitative things, which would be like how you perceive the color red. This red right here, you perceive it in a certain way that perhaps I don't perceive it. There's a feeling that comes with that, and then things like pain, love. You feel these things. You can't quantify them. You could quantify it. You could say, "I love you so much," but sometimes so much is you're like, well, so not much enough. Is like not enough. This pain hurts, but it's not it doesn't hurt. Doesn't capture enough of it. So then we get to the point where we're like, okay, we can quantify lots of things. We started quantifying, the frequency of colors, like the wavelengths of colors, and we could the sounds and how they're, all these different patterns. And there's this famous thought experiment in philosophy called Mary's Room or something. I forget what the actual name is called, but it's where they say the philosopher, he says, just suppose that there's this woman, Mary, and she's stuck in a black and white room, and all she ever experiences is black and white. Her whole experience is black and white. But she's an expert in color. She's read all the books there. It's about color. She knows what the different wavelengths are for these different colors. She knows what red, the frequency of red, whatever it is. She knows everything there is to know about colors. Now suppose that someone lets her out of this black and white room and hands her a red apple. The question is, what does she see? Does she already know that it's red? Or is she experiencing something new? And the thought experiment is she's experienced something new that she hasn't experienced in the book. Because it's different when you're describing the color red than when you actually see it. And that's what it reminds me of what you're saying. You know, there seems to be something more to it than just the physical aspect.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's tough, you know, it's tough because I think sometimes people find that too many people will focus on the emotional, the sensational part. You know, like, okay, I don't feel like, let's just say, I don't feel like working out today.
Okay.
So I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
You know, even though in your mind you're like, I should work out because I'm fat.
Yeah.
Or I should work out because I'm fit. But then you're like, too many of us depend on our emotions rather than our intellect.
Yeah.
And the balance is not there. You know, and it's tough to find that balance.
It's true. It's true. But I think, and that's where, when we talk about if balance is so important, and we can see how tough it is to find balance, do some people eventually find that balance, you know, and that's where you, similar to what you feel is something that is beyond what is measurable, what can be measured, you now have to look at your own growth and try to get a better image of yourself now. Where are you going? Yeah. Where is this growth going? Where is this thing that you're feeling? So you're depressed, right? And you want to feel better. Okay, now you feel better.
Yeah.
Where is this going? Yeah. That's another question that you have to answer for yourself. But I think that similar to what we observe in plants, and I like to use the grass because the grass is, or dandelions, because no matter how many times you cut it, it'll grow.
Yeah.
The grass does not need you to do anything. In fact, any plant, it knows how to grow. It just needs the right conditions, right? And I'll think of it as I like to think of it as a sequence or a combination. I like to think of it in numbers. That's the world I'm in right now. When you are trying to evaluate an equation or balance an equation, you have to make sure the two sides, right? Or you want to prove, you know, you have to balance out the two sides, right? And if the two sides don't balance, then it's what can be, can't exist. Yeah. It can't exist. Right. So it's so important that we remember that when we are looking at our growth, it's similar to the grass in the way that the conditions are not something that is required of us to necessarily meet, because we have a choice to enhance further our progression, right? Put the pedal to the metal and explore to our heart's content. But even if we don't move, we're almost like standing on this slow treadmill that is just moving forward. Even if we don't move, we are standing on a treadmill that is going one direction, and that's forward. So no matter how much you don't want to grow, eventually your physical body is going to get taller, and you're going to be faced with more and more information, and you are going to work with all this information, and you are going to organize it no matter how much you try to not do it. And we can speak for those that are disabled and question on if they really do it or not. But like we already know, there's so much we don't know about the people that are disabled. Yeah, especially their consciousness. So growth is unavoidable. Because it's unavoidable, I ask people now, okay, when we talk about death, right? And that's why it's so important to listen to these experiences, right? Because you ask yourself, okay, is there life after death? And a lot of people try to get the answer from someone else, right? Try to find someone else to convince them. But I think it's as simple as this. When I ask you, when you feel to yourself everything that's around you. And I ask certain people, because I've actually asked people, I said, hey, can you tell me something that you can observe that ends, that ends? And they'll use a certain example, but they'll then realize that, it doesn't ultimately end. It just, what happens is what comes after is something they can't explain, right? So in the way that you cannot get rid of the grass. And even if you nuke the earth is going to do its own thing, and eventually grass is going to come back. You know what I mean? And you look at numbers, because I'm in a mathematical world and I'm dealing with numbers that don't end. You know what I mean? We all have dealt with this. You know what I mean? These type of numbers, irrational numbers, right? And you look at your life now and I ask you, do you feel like you're going to end? Most people just tell me, I don't know. I don't know. But it's not important what they say, because I've already asked myself that question. I'm telling you, I don't feel like I'm going to end. Sure, there's a physical phenomena that's going to occur at a certain stage in my life where you won't be able to see me do anything anymore. That's literally it. You won't be able to see me do anything anymore. Right? But I think that this life is already evident enough that there's a lot more happening around what you can't see than there is happening within the frequency of the light that you can't see. Yeah? There's a lot more happening within the frequency of the sound that you can't hear than is happening within the frequency of the sound that you can hear. Yeah? And so I do not feel, when I actually look up, when I feel inside of myself, am I going to end? I do not feel like I'm going to end. But I think you have to be passionate in order to feel that you're not going to end. You have to really focus. You have to really focus, yeah? Because when you're nonchalant about yourself, it's easy for you to be like, I don't care. I don't know. I don't care. It's easy. But seeking requires passion. It requires you to have a desire. Seeking is desire. You need to desire it.
I mean, that's the only way you learn. You got to have that desire, but not only do you have to have desire, you have to have persistence. You have to do it when you don't feel like doing it. If you're wanting to learn, you have to learn. You have to read when you don't feel like reading. You got to go do something that you don't feel like. You got to ask the questions, the hard questions.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, do you fear, when you say, I feel like I'm not going to end, do you fear death? Absolutely not. No. I welcome it. Now, it's interesting when I say that, because it can sound dangerous, because there's a fine line between thinking critically and thinking insanely. A lot of critical thinkers have mentioned that. There's a very blurred, fine line between thinking critically and thinking insanely. It's so blurred and it's so fine that we can say it's one of the same. Yeah. Why I say I welcome it, yeah, is because there is going to be so much more to learn when that day comes. Yeah. When death comes.
When death comes, there's going to be so much more to learn through that experience and what's going to come forward. It's only going to be a forward progression. And what is happening here, I value what's happening here so much, that I am spending every day to soak in and seek and enjoy and indulge as far as work with what's here in a sustainable, because the bias I have and the polarization I have is towards service and service to others. That is the most efficient way I've come to understand my experience here, how it plays with where I'm going after I leave. Yeah. It's all directed towards a higher degree, a higher dimension of service, and it gets so deep. It gets so deep that when you look at the sun and you look at what it does for us, no matter if there's war, no matter what happens, it's always shining. It shines on the just and it shines on the unjust. It warms us up. It gives us the beauty in the seasons. It gives us these vegetation. It gives us these diverse ecosystems and diverse physical beauties that we can observe in people even, so much that you can see why it's been represented as the biggest representation of love as far as service to another with no desire of anything back. Yeah. Because no matter what you do to the sun or to anyone, the sun is going to shine. Yeah. And you're at that perfect spot where you get that amazing frequency, right? Which is why we're in the Goldilocks zone. We're just far enough for the right things to happen. Yeah. It's that magic number that is consonant. Yeah. And what is happening in areas like Mars is dissonant. Yeah. Because there's no such thing as good and bad. It's consonance and dissonance in music. When you talk about theory, there's no such thing as bad music and good music. Just music that has a lot of tension and doesn't sound good. That's dissonance, right? It creates tension. And there's music that has a rise and resolution of tension. And that builds the consonant sound that is evident within the degrees in what is known as a musical scale or a key. Yeah. All of these different degrees from 1 to 7 and 8 becoming the same as 1 because it's the octave has a characteristic. Yeah. And how they work together in combination makes that consonant sound. So when we look at our lives right now, it has to be consonant with where we're going. So the things that you like and the things that you dislike, all of that is information for you to work with, because when you feel that point of balance, you have found a point of consonance. And if you work with those points of consonance, you will have a life that is fruitful and you will move in the direction that works with what's going to come after, right? So that's why some of the great books, some of the greatest religions teach about these points of consonance that connect with what comes after, like love, patience, forgiveness, mercy, right? These things, these are points of consonance that work as the spine works. It's the backbone, yeah, to where you're going. Yeah.
So you think when death occurs, right? And you had previously said that, we may eventually get to a point where we're all conscious of each other's consciousness. In your opinion, is it that, so there's this, let me tell you a story first about this guy that I met on a flight to LA.
Okay.
He was a bone surgeon.
Okay.
He's an Indian American guy. And we got into a conversation about Christianity and Hinduism.
Yeah.
We got talking, and he's telling me that he's like, as a Hindu, my goal is to become one with the one, right? With the one who gives existence to all things.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
He's like, that's my goal. My goal is to do so much good that when I die, I don't reincarnate into something lesser than me, or have to redo the whole life again. But it's to go and join the one consciousness. Now, in your opinion, is that similar to what you're saying? Is that?
I think the details are not important. Such a thing.
Okay.
The whole idea of you're going to come back as a certain thing, I think that is the knowledge that is not important for us to understand, right? That's why I don't think it's important for you to even say that part. For me personally, if somebody else says it, that's okay, right? But that's one of those information that speaks louder when you don't say it. It's one of those things that if you say it, you are doing I believe you're doing an injustice to the magnitude of what you are actually trying to say. It's like the word logos. That word, the magnitude to the word logos, right? It's so huge that so many people have a hard time trying to get at it. Yeah. And the whole idea of love, even, it's such a magnitude. So you just know that what you feel to be consonant is that when you do good, you feel a spiritual growth within yourself, which can be described as a fueling of energy. The way a car, when it gets a full tank, it feels, you can kind of like imagine how a car feels when it gets that tank. Because you see, when I do something good for someone, inside, that's how it feels. It feels like something in me, I just got this multiplication of energy, right? And even if I do something good and it doesn't feel that way a lot of times, what ends up happening as well is that later on, something even greater happens from that thing that I did. Even though I didn't feel that energy right away, it set an effect. right? It's like a ticking time, like a time bomb, right? It's like later on it exploded, and that little act that I did had such a huge effect, right? Like recently, an example of that is that act that my grandmother had, which was to nurture her children, starting with her firstborn, who is my mother. It ended up being such a huge effect that my mother flew her to Canada when she is in her elderly stage, in her 70s, gave her an opportunity to see a whole new world at a time where most people are not expecting to see anything new, right? She was able to see a whole new world and work with this, other information, right? It's like that effect of love, that effect that you feel, it's so evident that it's been around forever. That's why what that gentleman said, which was connecting to that greater one, that is what's happening. Because similar in music, harmony is synonymous with consonance. You work with consonance and you can produce harmony. And that harmony is the combination that best fits, right? The place where everything fits, like a jigsaw puzzle. You got to turn it a certain piece for a certain way, a certain direction for it to fit, right? Once you do that, you have harmony, a harmonious effect, right? And that's what's happening. When you do these acts, you're getting closer and closer to that harmonious state, because you can do other things too. You can go and have, intercourse with all these different people, and, you can go and, fight all these different people too.
Yeah.
You can do so many things, but there's only certain things that work in consonance to that feeling that is, that feeling that is, directional, that is directed towards harmony. There's only certain things that work on that level. Yeah. And that is what your friend is describing. Yeah. So the details are people describe them in many ways, many different teachings, many different philosophies, many different religions have all these different details, but the details are not important.
You don't find the details to be that crucial.
They're not at all.
What do you think of the, because I know you've said this a few times. You said there is no right and wrong. There is only the degrees in which you're
consonance and dissonance.
Yeah. But I would disagree, but I want to know why you think there is no right and wrong.
Because no matter how many bad things happen in this world, things are only going to get better. And I say that, okay, well, let's test that. All right. We can test that through everything that's happened between now and the beginning of the earth, right? All these bad things have happened throughout history that we can list off, right? But look where we are now, right? And we can talk about all these ifs, ands, and buts. What if we didn't fight this? What if? But I think the fact that it happened goes to show that what happened was working in conjunction with this order that was always to happen, right? And that's if. That works hand in hand with, if you're going to do the dissonant things, the thing that I described as the gutter in the bowling alley will bring you to consonance. Yeah. No matter how much you try to describe it as this and that and this and that. And you can see that a lot of people find consonance through dissonance. A lot of people do so many atrocious things in their lives, and then they all of a sudden something amazing happens and they do the most amazing things, greater things than the people that have never experienced anything ever, or greater things than people that experience nothing but good things. Some of the people that do the greatest things in the earth has experienced some of the most atrocious things. And some of the people that have done the greatest things, we end up finding out that they also do some of the most atrocious things, that the great things that they did all of a sudden don't even matter anymore. You see, you cannot find one separate from the other. Right? It's like, again, that magnet.
But does that mean that that what they do is wrong? Does that mean that what they do is not wrong? I guess that's the question I'm asking.
When we put it in words, and we try to convince one another, we are now dividing that grand one that is the 10, right? Because the whole idea is that thing that they did that we can agree is wrong, like killing, right?
Sure.
We'll agree it's wrong. And then we have intruders in our perimeters, and they're endangering the lives of our children. And then now the killing becomes right. And then we look at children and, you know, how atrocious it is to put children to work and do all these horrible things at them, right? And we all agree that that is wrong. And then we look at the clothes that we're wearing, and we look at the electronics that we have. My home country, Congo, is a great example of how the mineral that's so important for these electronics to run, these mines, atrocious things are happening to children. The locals know about it. Everybody knows about it. But they all agreed that it is one of those good, that evil things that they're just not going to do it. You know,
right.
That is why we can talk. We can use words to describe things. But the things that are happening around us don't need any words because they are happening. And so now we have to ask ourselves, no matter how much I say it's wrong, why is it still happening? Because the thing is, I ask you, killing is wrong. Let's end it.
Right. But not all killing is wrong, is what I would say.
Right.
Right. There are certain killings that you can justify, rightly so. Is one would be if someone has a gun to your head, right? And they're like, I'm going to shoot your friend Armel right now. I was like, bro, I'm sorry. I'm going to shoot the guy. If I knew how to shoot, that is, I would shoot the guy with the gun to your head as he's about to pull the trigger. And it wouldn't be wrong, in my opinion, because there are contexts and intentions to what you're doing, because the intentions are what matter. Right? If I'm saying, if the guy has a gun to your head, and I'm like, well, I just want to kill you for the sake of killing you. Like, well, that's you know, perhaps I save you in the process of being killed. But the intention's not there. But some killing, of course, we should not kill people. But in the act of war, if a country invades, you know, it doesn't matter what country A invades country B, you know, and they're just going in because they want some sort of natural resource that they don't have and they want to exploit it, and they're just coming in, start killing all the villages or whatever. If country B retaliates and starts in their retaliation kills a lot of soldiers of country A, it wouldn't be wrong. We wouldn't say it's wrong because the intention is to protect themselves. But then if you just kill for the sake of killing, then it's wrong. Right?
Yeah, you see, you are right in what you described right there, especially in the first example of a person just killing me out of you know, just cold intent and, you know, not being a consequence for it. We can see that once upon a time such a thing was a reality, but when we look at the history of where we've come now, we've come to realize that that is not something to happen, right? And so we've put in these certain contingencies to stop that from happening. And so when we now look at what you described, which is so key, the intent, right? We can now see when we stop people from physically killing, right? We can now see that something that arguably is as equally tragic as killing another is the damage inflicted from the self to the self. And so this intent that you had to killing someone else, even though you didn't kill them, this intent, you had it. I don't kill you, but I think about it and I intend it, right? And then all of a sudden this manifests as far as in my thoughts. And then all of a sudden I have this unhealthy lifestyle, this unhealthy habit, right? And now we get these mental illnesses, right? That come from all these different places, right? Which I think work with what we're talking about in this sense, in the aspect of what is good and what is bad, okay? We can physically put it in parameters that are efficient for society, right? But then whenever we are even looking at that deeper, we see that the control is not one without the other. It is a balancing of degrees. Just so much of this, not so much of that, and a time and place of it, right? But see, when we look at the things that we can't control the degrees of, right? We start seeing that this person that had thoughts of killing someone, okay? When we now tell them to suppress these thoughts and we put them on things that will physically suppress their thoughts, it doesn't work anymore. And then, okay, so what are we going to do now? Should they actually think about it? Okay, well, let's work with that now. Okay, think about it now. Think about it. And then now that you're thinking about it, well, if you ask me, a lot of the critical thinkers, some of the most critical of thinkers out there have thought about these things. They didn't do it. But the same way you look at a marble, you look at it, you think about it in detail, and you take that and you connect it with everything around, and you see why everything is working the way it's working. Why it's important in society for somebody not to just go and kill, but why you cannot blame a soldier for going and killing somebody else, or why you cannot blame the person who's in the streets, who's scared for his life, goes and does that. And then even though you can blame them, you also see how you can't blame them. We see all these different things. That's why when we talk about good and bad, that is an efficient thing to do. It is an efficient tool that can act as a catalyst for those that are on the tips of awareness to propagate them forward. But for those that are thinking about it, I think there is much more growth that comes from putting the two together and then seeing why this is something that is happening. Even though we feel in our hearts that love is the key and love is everything and it is the answer. Why is hate here? This thought, instead of putting one against the other, I think more growth can come from putting them two together. Not everyone can do this. Not everyone is ready to do this. But me and you are a good example of people that are already doing it, right? Are willing to sit face to face and talk and think and work with these things, right? Because in fact, everything is in our minds. The intention that you mentioned that was behind the killing, I've come to stumble upon the thought and the propagation towards understanding that when you do it in your head, it's already done. You don't need to do it physically, right? And it's the same mentality I've approached even in games with soccer or sports or boxing or whatever. When I beat you in my mind, I've already beaten you. And you have to do the same. And then everything you do, I have to keep on beating you in my mind. That's the whole thing of strategy. That's what happens in chess. Everything is in your mind. What happens physically is an echo. If you follow the echo, you miss out, right? You miss out, right? So that's why it's more rewarding to just accept what is happening and try to look at it the way you look at a marble, from every angle possible.
I think that's key. I think I think we sometimes underestimate how powerful our minds can be. You know, because if you really think about it, you think about the elite athletes. They are convinced that they are the best, and that's what gets them where they are. You don't get to become an elite athlete without believing that you are damn good. You know, and in one sense, it's self-fulfilling, because now you're like, okay, I'm that good, so I gotta be that good. You know, you don't get to be, if you watch UFC, John Jones, who's one of the greatest guys, you know, you don't get to be that good by believing that, oh, you know, I'm mediocre, I'm okay, some guys can be. No, you believe that you are the best in the world.
100%.
And it's that echo that you're talking about. You know, in that sense, it starts to ripple out in how you fight. You know, he's already dominated them in the mind, in his mind. He's like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this to you. Conor McGregor, he predicts what he was going to do to so many guys. You're like, oh, I'm going to knock you out first round. Boom, knocks him out. What in the world? I'm going to knock you out second round. Boom, second round gone. Like, okay, this guy is doing something else. You know? And it's crucial. The mind is powerful. Very powerful.
It really is.
Oh, man. We've been doing this for like almost 2 hours. If people want to follow you, have social media?
Hell yeah.
What is it?
VNCHY Flames on Instagram.
VNCHY.
VNCHY Flames. VNCHY.
Yep.
FLAMEZ.
MEZ. Okay.
MEZ.
That's on Instagram.
That's on Instagram. My Instagram is the core of it, because from the Instagram you'll get linked to the other Instagram. There's another Instagram.
What?
It's called In Love and Light, but it's In Love Light.
Is this a project that you're working on?
No, it is. Think of it as a source of a message that is deeper than what is being put out on my VNCHY Flames.
Okay.
You know, it's just another outlet, you know. And there's a WordPress as well in the bio. They'll find all that. Okay. But it all happens on the Instagram that is VNCHY
Flames with a Z.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, Armel, thank you, sir, so much for this. This is awesome.
It's amazing.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you found something helpful or you learned something new from it. If you didn't know, we have a Kazingram dialogue shop that you can go and you can check out some of our merchandise there. If you want to support us, you can support us through the shop. You can also support us by giving us a 5-star review on iTunes. It really helps us and helps other people find Kazingram dialogue. We are on a mission to get people to discuss ideas rationally, and you can help us by sharing Kazingram dialogue, by sharing this episode, by sharing other episodes that you've enjoyed on social media. If you haven't followed us on social media, please do. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All right, peace out.